So Sadie Sink is Jean Grey. I mean, that's what it is, and that's what I'm confident in saying. But there's a lot to it, and there's a lot that we could get into with regards to this. Okay, so this has been an ongoing thing. You've probably seen that I've been reluctant to let it go. That Sadie Sink is not Jean Grey. I put out a video this morning on the main Den of Nerds channel. It's like a 20-minute video, and it talks about what I was recently told from sources, but it also gives you 5 big reasons and clues as to why this is actually happening, because I know it's so crazy and ridiculous that a lot of people will have trouble believing it. And so I think it's a good video, man, and I would recommend going and watching it because it really does a good job of explaining these 5 different clues, which if you're a person that's like, they would never introduce the new X-Men in a Spider-Man movie before we see the X-Men. Like, I understand it. I understand all the questions. I understand all the reasons people don't think it's real. There are things you need to understand about Marvel's history and things that are going on right now. Please watch the video. It clears a lot up. But for those of you that have already watched it, or, you know, for those of you that would never watch it, I want to dial down or drill down a little bit more on the details here and at least share what I can share about it and explain what I really think is going on. So the main thing that happened was I was speaking to a source, and essentially it was like a strong hint, sort of a nod kind of a thing that was like, hey man, you keep talking about, you know, Jean, that's pretty interesting. I'm thinking you could be right, okay? And we were sort of waiting and trying to dig a little bit deeper and get it, so to speak, confirmed. And I guess what I'll say is it could absolutely be not Jean. I could be 100% wrong here. So keep that in mind, because you know, a lot of people are saying this is not true. A lot of people are saying she's certainly not Jean. I have strong reasons to believe that she is Jean. I can't fully explain why, but I guess what I can say is, like, in the same way that Jeff Snyder was lied to by Marvel, like literally, he had a rep, and he hears that Robert Downey Jr. is going to be Doctor Doom. He hits his rep up, and the rep's like, no, that's absolutely not true. Like, that is absolutely a lie. And then a week later, it's confirmed. Now, the reason that's important is Marvel used to either not say anything, like no comment, or they'd be like, that's true, but you cannot say anything about it. Okay? But they've changed. They literally lied to Jeff to his face. And the reason that's important is because I think they're lying to people right now. Not Jeff, because they don't talk to that motherfucker anymore, or maybe they do now. I don't know. It's a back and forth with them. But I think there are a lot of people that have actual Marvel sources that have said, hey, man, Jean Grey, and they're literally being told by some of the best sources they have and the most reliable people they have, no, she's not Jean Grey. They have gone through such effort to hide this that, frankly, the things they're doing to hide it are sus. And maybe that's all I can say about that. But, like, it just became clear through conversations with my source, understanding the context of what I think Marvel is doing, that I feel very strongly that she's Jean Grey. Okay? So I guess we'll start there. I'm sorry for all the vagueness and weirdness about saying that, but, like, maybe eventually I'll be able to explain exactly what I'm talking about. Maybe some of you guys can read between the lines. But that's probably all that I can say about it, okay? Now, look, you don't even have to believe me. Just take a step back and look at what's going on. It's pretty obvious they're keeping the Sadie Sink thing a secret, okay? And we had really reliable people say all sorts of shit. I mean, Jeff was the first one that's talking about Jean, but then even Jeff was like, I'm hearing Mayday Parker now. Some people were hearing Mary Jane, you know? Somebody heard Gwen. Like, wasn't it Christian Harloff that heard Gwen? Saying, guys, these are not unreliable people. These are people that are plugged in. So, like, people are hearing different things about this character. That should be a red flag already. That's like, there's something weird about this character. Now, part of that could be explained by this whole shapeshifter bit. The idea is that she's a shapeshifter and she can change her form and all of that sort of stuff. So maybe it's connected to that, where she is literally embodying different people and pretending to be different people throughout the film. That is one possibility. or Marvel has just gotten incredibly sophisticated in the way that they're trying to hide this leak. Okay? Now, again, watch the video for all of the evidence, because there's a laundry list of reasons that I think they're doing this. But I want to be clear here. It's possible she's like a Jean Grey clone, Madeline Pryor, and she's like technically a like the Goblin Queen. Okay, and look, I think that's like, if that's what it is, and then people are like, "See, I told you she wasn't Jean," then I'm gonna say like that's fucking pedantic. You know what I mean, Trev? Where are you at? This is Trev's probably in chat literally right now, being like, "Yeah, that's probably true, and you're wrong." But like, come on, man, like it's the same fucking character, right? The point is, she has the powers of Jean. She's doing Jean shit, and people are noticing. You know what I mean? Like that's what it is, okay? And so maybe it's that. Like, frankly, maybe it's that. Maybe she is the Goblin Queen. Maybe she's Madeline Pryor, a variant of Jean, of something that is maybe working with Doctor Doom. Now, I couldn't get the Doctor Doom stuff confirmed at all. Okay? Couldn't get the Doctor Doom stuff confirmed at all. But I'll say one thing, and the only reason I'm saying this is because if somebody else can confirm this, if somebody else knows what this is about, then, like, hit me up. But a lot of those symbiote rumors, remember we talked about all those symbiote rumors, and there was like symbiote drones and like half symbiote this, that, second, and third. A lot of that symbiote stuff, nope. At least not a big part of it. And so if you're out there and you're like, oh shit, so that is true, maybe this guy knows what he's talking about, hit me up. We can have a conversation about it, okay? So, just wanted to be clear about that. Could possibly be Goblin Queen, you know, the variant version, this, that, second, and third. But either way, she's Jean, in my opinion. Now, why could this be happening? Okay? And how or why would Marvel want to establish their X-Men in movies before getting into the reboot, right? Or the reset? Well, there's a couple of different reasons why. And there's a couple of things that we could really drill down here on. And so one of them is these comments made by Kevin Feige, where he essentially said around the time of Deadpool and Wolverine, he's asked about the X-Men coming in and like, when are we going to see more, blah, blah, blah. So Kevin had this quote where he basically said, you're going to start to see, well, you just saw it in Deadpool, Wolverine, and that will continue. You're probably going to see X-Men characters you're familiar with over our next few films, are showing up in our next few films. And then from there, the story of Secret Wars explicitly sets up the future for the mutants. That's an important thing to remember, Secret Wars, okay? Now, other things. I want to show you this video. It's a Grace Randolph video. We're not going to watch the whole thing, okay? This is from 2 years ago. There's a couple of important things that Grace says in this video, which I think actually explain what's going on with Jean and possibly other X-Men characters in Spider-Man Brand New Day, okay? So,
what's the MCU plan with the X-Men? So
this is important, and remember, this was 2 years ago she was saying this.
Here's what I know so far. Well, they're doing the multiverse, obviously, and that's going to allow Kevin Feige to bring over the X-Men fully formed from another universe, just like he's doing.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that?
At the Fantastic Four, so that he can skip origin stories, which he also did with Spider-Man, as you might recall. I mean, at this point, thanks to the Fox movies and the Sony movies with Spider-Man, everyone knows the origin stories of these characters. And so Kevin Feige just wants to hit the ground running. A number of Fox X-Men are going to show up in Deadpool 3. That's the No Way Home of the Marvel Fox movies. And again, now I'm very curious to see what they'll all be wearing. I think they're going to be dressed like their animated counterparts. But maybe we might see them in a variety.
Now, the truth is a lot of this got pushed out of that film and pushed into Doomsday. And, you know, you can follow along with all the reports there, but there were many different characters that they were trying to get for Deadpool and Wolverine. And a lot of it just seemingly got pushed because there were going to be like a lot of other of the actual X-Men of like Chuck and others. But yeah, seemingly all getting pushed to Doomsday.
Variety of looks. The X-Men get a lot of fashion changes in the comics. And that would be very cool, actually. It would allow us to make cool videos about it. But remember, Deadpool 3 is a multiverse movie, and so all I'll say is there's the potential for a lot of variants. Many of the Fox X-Men then will then continue on to Secret Wars, and then Kevin
Okay. Now, this is kind of important. Remember, it's Secret Wars, but that could have changed as well.
Will transition to the MCU version of the team. And don't rule out one of the Fox X-Men maybe sticking around. But that's like a really long time from now, because that's after Secret Wars. And that is, that doesn't even have, well, I think, what is it, like 2026? But you know that's probably going to get pushed.
This part's really important. Listen to what she says here.
It's just taking forever. Although since we're dealing with X-Men variants, the new MCU versions of some X-Men might show up and be introduced in Deadpool 3 and or Secret Wars.
Did you hear what she just said? Let's run it back.
It's just taking forever. Although since we're dealing with X-Men variants, the new MCU versions of some X-Men might show up and be introduced in Deadpool 3 and or Secret Wars.
Okay, now this is really important. Now at the time, it's like hard to like kind of put together what she's saying there, but she said two really important things. She said the X-Men are going to come from a new universe. She then said, because of variants, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw some of the new X-Men in, she says Deadpool and Wolverine, and then she says Secret Wars. But that was 2 years ago, and now we kind of know that's shifted to probably Spider-Man Brand New Day and Secret Wars. Because a couple of things that just came out are really interesting with this. Daniel, I believe it was Daniel, somebody double check me in chat, recently said that events in Spider-Man Brand New Day are going to set up Secret Wars, which is really interesting and kind of follows along with this idea that maybe Tom is not in Doomsday or barely in it. And so his movie is going to kind of go right into Secret Wars. And that's kind of interesting. But the other part of this that's wild is Alex Perez literally said yesterday in a Q&A over the Cosmic Circus that maybe because there is a more real version of the universe that existed before 616, that instead of thinking of these new characters that we're going to see as variants, maybe the characters we've been watching are variants. That's really interesting. One has to wonder if Grace knew this 2 years ago, because the way she phrases it is pretty interesting. She says, and we'll watch it again.
But you know that's probably going to get pushed. It was just taking forever. Although since we're dealing with X-Men variants, the new...
What does that mean, dealing with X-Men variants?
New MCU versions of some X-Men might show up and be introduced in Deadpool 3 and or Secret Wars.
Okay, so if you read between the lines, right, and I'm not saying that she's 100% saying this, but it's just kind of interesting, and she's not the only one that was talking about this stuff at the time. It's just the video I found and the best way to illustrate what I'm talking to you about. There was potentially always an idea that the X-Men were going to come from this different universe. The truth is they're coming from the real universe, the prime universe, the one that existed before we then got into 616 and potentially all the branch universes off of the 616, which are all variants of a bastardized timeline, right? But what she said was, because we're dealing with variants, you might see some of the new X-Men, the MCU X-Men, those versions in Deadpool and Wolverine and in Secret Wars. And again, that's 2 years ago, and that plan has obviously shifted. So what I'm trying to get at, and what I want people to understand, is that there's a lot of evidence that the new Fox X-Men were going to be set up, and they were going to start popping up way before the X-Men movie. Weird that they had a writer. They went 9 months seeking for a writer, and then they got a writer on the X-Men movie way before they had a director and years before the movie goes into production. Why would you do that? Well, you would do that because you're actually introducing them in these movies, and you're going to tie it all together with this big connected story. And all of that makes the comments that Kevin made about how the Avengers movies set up a new interesting saga for the X-Men post Secret Wars. That is, that all just makes a lot more fucking sense to me if you really think about it. So I know it's like kind of hard to believe that maybe they would do this in a Spider-Man movie. I totally understand that. And maybe they won't. But there's enough evidence that, like, this is shit they wanted to do. And they basically ran out of real estate. The only movie they have before Doomsday now is Secret Wars, or rather is Spider-Man. And then, playing in to the Doomsday thing. Now, to take it one step further and get really crazy with what this might be, I have also been told that a lot of the Fox X-Men that we have seen are fake. They're variants, but fake variants in the same way that a lot of the 616 characters are. And so, I don't know, this sounds like a pretty Kevin Feige thing to me. You let me know, chat. But I think it's possible that Sadie Sink's Jean Grey is Prime Jean. And, you know, some of these actors and actresses that didn't want to show up for Doomsday, we assume Jean is not in the movie, and we assume, like, Femke's not in it, and, like, oh, that's a shame, and that's crazy. But, like, what if it's Sadie? You know what I mean? What if the new Storm is Storm? And you get some of that Deadpool Wolverine flavor, because remember this, there were actors that didn't say yes for Deadpool, and they replaced them with, like, new versions that were kind of like nobodies, right? In fact, you're this Christmas's Juggernaut, right? There's literally jokes that Deadpool's making about it. But you've got to realize that Marvel keeps a lot of these concepts on whiteboards and tries to find places to fit them in. And so the rationale behind what was going on in Deadpool and Wolverine could have been spoiling this Prime thing and these other versions of the characters that were hanging out with other X-Men that we know. I don't know exactly, but you know, just weird that Grace 2 years ago was talking about the X-Men being introduced from a separate universe coming in just like the Fantastic Four. And by the way I understand the reset is, and Alex Perez literally just said this yesterday as well, the reset is meant to take it so that all the events of the old universe is the canon now. The difference is a lot of the stuff that we saw in the Infinity Saga, it happened. Maybe in a slightly different way. Maybe the X-Men were involved. Maybe Doom was there. But essentially, the timeline of that old universe will be restored. That's why Kevin calls it a reset. Because it's not a reboot. It's resetting the timeline to back when it was real. Which I know is trippy. And to be fair, like, we don't know how normies are going to respond to that. You know, it's a pretty wild fucking idea. But the evidence is there. A lot of people have been talking about it. So I wanted to kind of drill down a little bit, explain where my head's at, and talk just a little bit more about the evidence that is out there that this is what they are doing. So with all of that said, what are your thoughts, comments, questions, concerns? What do you guys think of that? Pretty wild, huh? Well, Black Panther and Spider-Man be introduced in Captain America movies, so it's possible. Yeah, of course. That's something I put in the other video as well. And it's not just that the Russos did that. It is that the Russos are helping with the Mutant Saga. The Russos are in Parliament now. They are back with Marvel in a more permanent way. And therefore, yeah, it's safe to assume that some of their old tricks or some of the ways they think about this are probably now in operation over there. Don't forget, Sadie is also confirmed for Secret Wars. Connor, that's a great point, and that's kind of why I was like bringing up the Secret Wars thing. The trades, which, you know, look, I got to be honest with you. I think other people are starting to put this together too, but nobody wants to like say it or whatever. Nobody wants to get in trouble because it's weird that the trades reported that Sadie Sink's going to appear in Secret Wars. Like, come on, man. Doesn't it feel like somebody's got access to some kind of info, some kind of stream of info? It's like weird how all of these things seem to fit together a little bit, but yeah, I absolutely think that's fair to bring up. I mean, the other thing is, like, Sadie Sink literally came out and said hair color can change, and yet we have photos of her on the set with her actual red hair. So it's like, what was that about? That's weird. I think she's just trying to be Andrew Garfield, you know, and Yeah. Go watch the video that I put on the main channel this morning. It goes into great detail about a lot of interesting things that happened that would suggest that the X-Men are going to show up in Spider-Man Brand New Day.